Hi everybody, chapter 17. It's dark and chilly when Rachel finally gets home. Shush, voiceover. Okay. When Rachel finally gets home, the table is set for one. Her father is reading the evening paper. Her mother is washing dishes. Why so late? Her mother says. We ate already. Where were you? Didn't you get my message? She says to her father, but it's her mother who looks around, her eyes enlarged behind her glasses. Message? She says quickly. What happened? Her instincts for calamity are stronger than Manny's. Ma, don't get upset. Grandpa fell. He fell? What do you mean he fell? Fell, Rachel says. Her father has put down his newspaper. Her mother sits down at the table. He fell down? He fell down? He fell down on the sidewalk. Fell down on the sidewalk? Where is he? Ma, listen, he's all right now. Where is he? He's home, and tell me from the beginning. I got this phone call. Who called you? When was this? Manny asks. A woman called me right after I got home from school. I had just walked in the house and the phone rang. It was Alice Farnham. Who? Alice Farnham? Who's she? Is she somebody who lives in Grandpa's building? They can't wait for her to finish a sentence without interrupting. He was lying in the street. He was lying in the street? Did she mean the street or the sidewalk? Why didn't she call the ambulance? He must have hurt himself falling that way. How did he look? He walked all the way home? All the way home? Why didn't she call a taxi? How could she let him walk home? I wanted to call a taxi, Ma. Anyway, you don't let Grandpa do things. He does them. Her mother puts a plate of food in front of Rachel. Go ahead. What? Now tell me the whole story from start to finish. And Rachel does. At his building, you went up in the elevator with him. You went to his apartment, and then what? Then nothing, Ma. Rachel picks at her food, but she has no appetite. Her stomach is too tense. Grandpa said he'd just go to bed a little earlier and get some extra sleep. I tried to stay, but he kept telling me to leave. He insisted. How did he look? Her mother says, for at least the fourth time. Was he pale? Manny, do you think I should call him right now? No, what if he's sleeping? I better not disturb him. The phone rings and Rachel scrapes back her chair. Watch, Shirley says. Don't answer. It's got to be bad news. It's probably Helena. Rachel's heart is pounding unpleasantly. What if it's bad news? Did she leave her grandfather too soon? If you fall down once, why not twice? She picks up the phone. Hello? Is Hazel there? A man says. The closeness to Helena's name momentarily confuses her. Who? She asks. It's a mistake. Her mother is watching her with frightened eyes. Hazel, the man says. No, I'm sorry, you've got the wrong number. What? Where is Hazel? Who is it? Her mother says. What do they want? Are you sure? Hazel M. Worth, he repeats. This is the number I was given. No, it's wrong. Better try again. She hangs up. The phone rings again, almost at once. Her mother gasps. This time I know. But it's the same man, still asking for Hazel. No, Rachel says distinctly. No Hazel here. Don't call again, she adds. She sits down and tries to eat her supper. If the phone rings, don't answer it, Ma. We should call the doctor, her father says. You should know about Izzy. Her mother nods. Manny, you do it, though. I can't talk to him now. I'm too nervous. Manny gets Dr. North's answering machine. Everybody's on machines, he complains. Tell me about it, Daddy, Rachel says. I'm worried he won't call back until tomorrow, her mother says.
Even if he doesn't, nothing will happen, her father says.
I don't know, I'm just worried. She looks at Rachel. Aren't you going to eat any more than that? Later, when Dr. North calls back, Manny answers and starts to tell him about Izzy. Then he hands the phone to Rachel.
My daughter can tell you better what happened.
Dr. North listens without comment until she is done.
I'm sorry to hear that, he says. You say he didn't hurt himself?
I don't think so. He walked all the way home.
That's good that he can do that.
I wanted this woman that took him in, and I wanted to call a taxi, but he wouldn't let us.
No, that's fine that he wanted to walk. As long as he can manage, why not?
It's just I thought he shouldn't. Her mother is standing right next to Rachel. What is he saying, Mouse?
We want him to do whatever he can, as long as he can do it,
Dr. North says. Ask him if it's going to happen again, Shirley says.
But things may progress faster than I originally thought they would. The tumors are pressing on his lungs. He's going to have less and less.
Sweetheart? Ask him if anything is going to happen or if there's anything special we can do for Grandpa. Rachel covers the mouthpiece of the phone. Ma! What did I do? What did I say?
Oxygen available. And we may see other episodes.
You mean he fell because he didn't get enough air?
That's correct. Putting it simply, yes. Yes, he fell because he ran out of air.
In school the next day, Rachel manages not to think about her grandfather very much. Maybe it's a reaction to the previous day, to all that tension. Or maybe, she thinks, she remembers to think about Izzy. You just can't go around seeming miserable about someone else all the time, especially when you yourself are feeling just fine. The truth is, she has a good day and enjoys herself in school, especially in sixth period study hall. A spitball hits her on the side of her cheek. She turns around to see Louis, 2 aisles away, staring innocently at her. She picks up the spitball, raises her eyebrows. Did you do this? Louis holds up his hands in horror. Would I do something like that? Would I throw a spitball? Rachel smirks. Of course not. Louis's eyebrows narrow, and he points accusingly at Rachel. You are the one who's done something bad. She jabs her finger against her chest. Her face opens wide in surprise. What did I do? Louis points. You know. Rachel taps her forehead, frowns sincerely. Honestly, I have no idea. Louis looks away, his arms folded. Is he through playing the game? Rachel clears her throat. Ahem, she says discreetly. Louis doesn't seem to hear her. Ahem. She watches him closely. His left nostril curls conspicuously. She clears her throat rather loudly. Ahem! Mr. Esparza, who is the study hall monitor, looks up from his book. Please, he says in a pained voice. As usual, he's wearing cold ice cream colors, a white suit, a pale blue shirt, a pale lavender tie. Rachel writes Louis a note on a scrap of paper. She folds the note, checks out Mr. Esparza, he's reading again, takes aim and throws. The note lands just short of Louis's desk. He picks it up, takes his time unfolding it. Rachel watches him as he reads it. She wrote, L. What's going on? What is this all about? Signed, alarmed, distressed, and oh, so puzzled. He looks over at her, and she beckons, Come on over here. Louis's nose twitches. Should I? Why? Rachel smiles coaxingly. Because I want you to. Louis slouches to his feet, crosses the space between their desks, and perches on the edge of her seat. So, what's the matter? Rachel whispers.
Nothing, he whispers back.
Nothing? She says loudly.
Miss Cooper, Mrs. Sparsa says, please. Mr. Oswanger, are you two studying? Yeah, Louis says. His ears are red. Well, finish up, please.
If it was nothing, Rachel whispers, opening one of her textbooks. What was it all about?
I was just amusing myself, Louis whispers back. And you?
Ugh. You are a clown. A weird boy.
He nudges her. She nudges him back. Mr. Esparza looks up. I have a feeling this is goodbye, Louis says. He fishes a hard candy out of his pocket and gives it to Rachel. Then he goes back to his seat. It's not until she gets home that Rachel even thinks of her grandfather. Then, just walking into the house brings the whole thing back. The phone in the hall seems ready to bring bad news. Her mother's sweater, draped over a kitchen chair, seems to look at her reproachfully. Didn't give him a thought all day, did you? Even the refrigerator reminds her of Izzy when she takes out the salami wrapped in its wrapped in its little waxy stocking. Is her mother saving it for Sunday? Her grandfather adores salami. So does she, and she's been looking forward to a fried salami sandwich with plenty of mustard. She puts the salami on the cutting board, takes a knife, and then just stands there feeling guilty. Sighing, she returns it to the refrigerator. Nothing else looks just as good. She settles for old, reliable peanut butter. While she eats, she leafs through the afternoon paper. She finishes the sandwich before the newspaper, but continues reading. Then Helena calls and they talk, and it's all so nice and normal and ordinary. No tension, no guilt, no knots in her stomach. Helena doesn't ask anything about Izzy, and why should she? It's Rachel who ought to be thinking about him, worrying about him, who, at the very least, should be calling to ask how he is, how he feels, if he's had any after effects from his fall. And it's Rachel who's managed to let a whole hour slip by since she's been home from school without doing any of those things. As soon as she hangs up with Helena, she dials Izzy's number. The phone rings for a long time, longer than usual, long enough for Rachel to imagine Izzy lying alone and helpless on the floor. He finally answers. Yes, who is this?
Grandpa, why didn't you answer the phone? Where are you?
Where'd you think I was?
I don't know. The phone rang a long time.
Rachel, when you're my age, it sometimes takes a while to do your business.
Oh,
she says. Izzy knows how to deflate her.
Well, she says after a moment, how are you feeling today?
How should I feel?
The words are the same as always, but she hears something else in his voice. Some little quaver she's not used to. After yesterday, Grandpa, you could be excused for feeling a little tired. Did you stay in bed today and rest?
I did not.
Oh, did you go out?
I was downstairs in the lobby for a while.
I'll tell Ma.
I've already talked to your mother today.
She called you?
Mm-hmm.
Grandpa, I was wondering, did you bruise yourself when you fell? Suddenly, Izzy laughs.
I'm a big mess. My behind, excuse me, it's black and blue. My legs, too. I look like I've been in a big fight.
Did you tell Ma that?
You think these are the first bruises I've ever had?
I guess not.
I've been in plenty of fights in my life, Rachel. I've had black eyes, swollen lips, puffed up ears.
You make it sound like you were a boxer.
a boxer and a wrestler and an all-around knocker. I grew up in a rough world.
She can hear him breathing over the phone. He speaks slowly, pausing often for breath.
You took care of yourself, or someone took care of you. You get my meaning? You didn't walk through that world with your eyes half shut, Rachel. You looked both ways, and not just at the corners.
Another pause for breath.
Today people complain. They say, oh, the good old days. But they don't know. They don't know they got it good today.
When she hangs up a few minutes later, it occurs to Rachel that she just had a real conversation with her grandfather.